Whether or not the next president can get their legislative to-do list done will depend on who is in charge of Congress after November. Control of both chambers is expected to come down to a handful of tight races across the country, and that's why we've got an expert here to talk about them. Hunter Woodall joins me now. Hunter, great to see you. You've picked out a few fascinating races to discuss. Let's start with a race in Virginia pitting two veterans against one another.
Absolutely, Nancy. I mean, this is a seat held by Abigail Spanberger. She's not running for re-election. She's aiming to run for governor of Virginia. So this is a battleground district race, one that Democrats have benefited from winning in recent cycles. But they're struggling this time around. They have Eugene Pittman, who has the kind of profile that would normally profile well with Democratic voters. He's closely associated with the first Trump impeachment. But he's been struggling lately, and Republicans have coalesced behind Republican Derek Anderson. And the energy in this race has been tilting more towards Republicans recently. And at a time when Democrats are eager to win, back the House, this isn't a race they really want to be worrying about. This is a race they should have comfortably in their column.
That is really interesting. Yeah, they were hoping to hold that one. Nebraska Republican Congressman Don Bacon is also facing a tough Democratic challenger in a state that is supposed to be a red state. What's going on there?
Don Bacon has been one of those Republicans who's consistently won, even though Democrats have constantly targeted him, tried to oust him. It seems like this cycle might be the time they succeed. Democrats are incredibly confident in this race, surprisingly so, but Republican allies of Don Bacon have talked to me, and they talk about how he outlasts Democrats. He's outlasted his current challenger before. They think he'll do it again, but the problem is, too, this is a district that gets a lot of attention because it has an electoral vote. Nebraska allocates some of those electoral votes by congressional district. Kamala Harris wants to win this electoral vote in Omaha. That means a lot of Democratic attention in Don Bacon's district.
Oh, that's not what he wants to see. Okay, let's talk about the Maryland Senate race that pits Angela Brooks, a protege of the vice president, against Larry Hogan, the former governor. They had a debate this week. Let's take a listen to a bit of that.
The stakes of this election could not be any higher. We are facing an election where the future of our country and our freedoms are at stake. What we recognize is in this election, a woman's right to choose is on the ballot.
What we see today is nothing but divisiveness and dysfunction in Washington, where nothing ever seems to get done. Our country is being torn apart by the extreme voices on both sides.
So what are you seeing in that race? A lot of analysts say if there is any Republican who could win a Senate seat in Maryland, it would be Larry Hogan.
The race Hogan is running here is fascinating. He's technically branded himself as, he wants to be the Republican Joe Manchin in a way. He wants to be that person that obviously is a bipartisan member of the conference, but is showing more that he's willing to stand up for the values that he sees. It's not clear that Republicans want a Joe Manchin type on their side of the aisle in the Senate. And Larry Hogan, when I talked to voters in Maryland around their primary day, they talked about, hey, I voted for Hogan before. He won the governorship of a blue state twice, but they don't necessarily want it. They didn't necessarily want to send him to the Senate. I mean, and that's a challenge that Hogan keeps running into.
Well, that's fascinating because Republican hopes of winning back the Senate definitely run through Maryland. That's one of the paths that they'd like to take. Hunter Woodall, thanks so much. Appreciate it.